And hello, I'm Glenn Arthur Kaufmann.
And I'm Stuart Walker, and this is Star Talk, Astrology Talk Radio, promoting excellence in astrology. Again, if you would like us to read your chart, or if you would like to talk astrology with us, just give us a call at 415-864-TALK. That's 864-8255. And please have ready your date of birth, including the place and time you were born. Now, today's topic is this lunar eclipse that's coming up, and I'm going to read a little section out of the August '89 Sky and Telescope, give us an idea of what's happening here. Almost 7 years have passed since most of North America saw a good total lunar eclipse, so put a special mark on your calendar for Wednesday, August 16th. The eclipse of the full moon that evening will be nearly ideal for much of the United States and Canada. The eastern side of the continent has the best view, but even the west coast gets a chance to see the moon completely inside the Earth's shadow. This will be a long eclipse, too. Totality will last 1 hour, 36 minutes. And at most locations, the moon will be high enough for easy viewing, but low enough to suggest interesting foreground scenes for photographers.
Now, most of us here on the West Coast, especially the northwestern coast, in order to get a good view of this, you want to be able to see as close to sea level on the southeastern horizon as possible. In other words, if you've got some treetops in the ways or some mountains, you might not see it in totality. It's going to be a little tricky. You want to get up high, looking down low on the southeastern horizon. And when that moon comes up, it's going to be, depending upon what sort of weather we have over the next few days, it could come up dark red, it could come up black, but it's definitely going to rise in eclipse. And even after totality will take about an hour and a half to completely come off. So for the few hours after rising, we'll have some pretty interesting looking weather, interesting looking sights. Of course, it always affects things like the electromagnetic spectrum. In particular, when there's an eclipse to the moon, what happens is the temperature of the moon drastically drops very quickly. So what happens, and there's no sunlight hitting it, and what happens is the radiations that are normally hitting the Earth all of a sudden drop off very quickly. So just from that point of view, there's something going on.
Yeah, we have not had a moonrise eclipse for 7 years. When the moon rises, already eclipsed, that's when its influence, astrologically speaking, is the most powerful. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, the eclipse will happen with the sun in Leo and the moon in Aquarius. This is in the tropical zodiac that is normally used by most astrologers. Roughly around 24 degrees of the Leo-Aquarius axis. And so anybody who was born, you know, sun sign Leo, sun sign Aquarius, you know, you can expect an extra ride. So, and something else too, since we're on the idea of electromagnetic influences, the Earth is a bipolar planet. It has north and a south pole. It has an electromagnetic field or an aura that's called the magnetosphere. Now, if the sun were not around, this magnetosphere around the Earth would be very much almost like an apple with the top and the bottom sort of indented a little. You know, the old biology projects and chemistry projects or physics, whatever it was, had to do with, you know, the iron filings and so on. With the sun, though, the sun's energies beaming out makes the magnetosphere of the Earth look like a comet, in essence, with a tail. And that tail is streaming away from the sun. It's on the opposite side of the Earth from the sun. During a lunar eclipse is the one period in time where the moon actually moves through the magnetosphere of the Earth. Okay? So there is an extreme attachment between the moon and the Earth at that point. And in particular, what's happening is the moon is becoming receptive. It stops radiating. It stops reflecting. All right? And it starts absorbing the magnetosphere energy, or the magnetotail in this case. And usually with eclipses, you tend to see the effects not necessarily right at the eclipse, but you see them over the next year, especially 3 months after, 6 and 9 months after, when the sun moves around in a 90-degree position, 90 degrees, 180, 270, and so on. But in essence, what we're doing is we're priming the moon with Earth energy, and that's going to come back on us over the next year. So,
Now, for those of you who astrologically, we'll review the moon again. Astrologically, the moon rules memory. And when the moon is eclipsed, as opposed to the sun being eclipsed, is often when memories of old things, possibly past karmas, are wiped out, finished, completed. So this could be a time of completion of old stuff at this point. That's a lot about the moon. Now, let's give out this number again. Our number here, if you wish us to talk to you about your chart, is 864-TALK. That's 864-8255. What do we have next?
Well, eclipses always come in pairs, roughly 2 weeks apart. In this particular time frame that we have, we're looking at the lunar eclipse is happening first, okay, next Wednesday evening. 2 weeks thereafter, the lunar eclipse happens during basically a full moon. 2 weeks thereafter, at the new moon, there will be a solar eclipse at the beginning of Virgo, roughly 8 degrees of Virgo. That 2 week period in between the eclipses is a very pregnant period. It's a very powerful period preceding things that will be happening over the next year. You know, so you need to look at eclipses in sort of a patternary fashion. With the instance of a lunar eclipse happening first, it's a little bit trickier because what's happening is everybody gets riled up with the full moon and the eclipse energy. And then what happens is roughly halfway between the two eclipses, it all dies down. And everybody's still riled up, but there's almost no way to go, you know, nowhere to go with it. And then 2 weeks after the lunar, in this case, August 30th, we have the solar eclipse or the new moon eclipse. When they happen the other way around, wherein you get the new moon first and then the lunar eclipse, it's a little easier to deal with because the new moon hits, everybody's energy starts building up toward the lunar and the lunar eclipse and so on. But this time, it's almost like we peak too quickly. You know, the werewolf syndrome comes true for a little bit. So, and then we're going to die out roughly halfway through, and then it'll come back in again. So watch that energy flow. Use that as a patterning for the next few weeks. Midweek next week is going to be extremely tricky, you know.
Also, this eclipse occurs astrologically at about 24 Aquarius, is that right, Glenn?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you're using the Sibley or Rujar charts for the U.S. chart, that gives the eclipse occurs in America's moon. That's something to watch. It also occurs in George Bush's Mars. That's another thing to watch.
And what that does the moon in a national chart rules the groundswell or the massive feelings of the population.
It's the people in the national chart. It's the people. It's also their karma, where they've come from in past lives, what they're like.
Yeah, Aquarius.
What they're trying to work out. You know, occultists tell us that the moon in Aquarius in America's chart has to do with all those reincarnated scientists, Atlanteans, who blew up the planet 10,000, 12,000 years ago.
Aquarius is definitely the sign of the scientist in this case, the high technological industries of the U.S. and so on. It was very interesting, too. This eclipse period actually started at the new moon that we had at the beginning of August, and we're working up to the lunar eclipse. Very interesting that all the communication workers of America went out on strike. Okay, labor unions, you know, people wanting to support themselves in a high-tech Aquarian type of industry, like telecommunications. I suspect a lot of this will come to a head next Wednesday, you know, and I also suspect a few more of the different labor groupings in the U.S. to go off the deep end.
Now, while not very much is known about professional astrology and weather, and there remains to be a lot of work done there, in ancient times, any time a major body came up over the horizon at sunset, it always affected the weather. So we might see a change in the weather at this time with this eclipsed moonrise.
Yeah, and the thing to remember, too, is on the East Coast, which is, you know, a different time zone, it will start eclipsing with the moon already up in the sky. It's only the West Coast, and in particular, the Northwest Coast, that will get the experience of the moon rising in eclipse. Watch for that first light. It'll be interesting to see what color it is. In the past, we've had eclipses that were blue, dark black, almost to the point where you couldn't see them, bright red, yeah, blood red. I mean, and those, too, if you're into the esoteric meaning of colors, they will help to indicate, you know, what's happening, what we're going to be going through.